Hi, I'm some elusive Fangirl, and today I'm here to start my third session of reading Scum Self-Saving System. In the last session, I started chapter 2 and finished just before the end of it, so we'll be finishing off chapter 2. As I did in my last reaction, I will keep the reaction to about 1 hour 30, 1.5 hours, but I'll look for like a good stopping place. So if there's one just after, like a few pages later or a few pages before, I'll probably stop around there. In the last session, we went through the mission of the Skinner demon and solved that mystery very easily because Shenqing Cho decided to activate easy mode, which made the case a lot easier to solve and also reduced the villains or the mini bosses' intelligence. Meanwhile, Lo Bing-he was having like a mini crisis because one minute, to begin with, Shenqing Cho was essentially bullying him. Then he seemed to be getting a little bit nicer, especially on the journey to Shuanghu City, and then he tried to and then he was forgiving of the fact that Ning Ying was kidnapped whilst he was with her, but then tried to throw him into the wolves as soon as like the mini boss had captured them, only for then to appear that Shenqing Cho attacked her from behind and it was his plan all along. And then not only was it also, this was all being done whilst his Shuzhen was being half naked and blushing, etc. And then his Shuzhen tells him, that no matter what happens to his Shuzhen, he's guaranteeing Lo Bing-he's safety. I'm not surprised he was a bit overwhelmed at the end of that mission. Meanwhile, when we got back from the mission and we returned to the peak, Lo Bing-he, Shenqing Cho gave Lo Bing-he an actual cultivation manual, and because he had to disguise the fact that Ming Fan had actually given Lo Bing-he a fake one, he pretended it was a special one, designed specifically for Lo Bing-he's constitution, which is different to everyone else's. This poor boy. And finally, we ended off just after we met for the first time Liu Qingge, and how he is also having a mini crisis because whilst he was undergoing a chi deviation, Shenqing Cho, who hates him and who could quite often would fight with him, decided to save him. So he's also baffled and angry and confused. So that's lovely. I know, I'm just really excited. So that previous session was actually something I did first thing this morning, and then I've done another recording today, and to finish the day I thought, let's just do another recording. I'm really enjoying these. I hope you are too. It's just nice to be able to read, and I think the whole thing of my personality or my preferences when reading, which is to read it all in one go, definitely coming through. I do just want to keep on reading, and so I'm indulging because it's nice and easy to record these, and I'm doing what I wanna do. So yeah. As usual, please no spoilers in the comments. And if you would like me to read your comment for a future chapter, please put it below and name the chapter that you would like me to read it after, so I can discuss anything you've brought up or at least give my reaction to it. But I think that's it. Still got bad throat, so apologies for that. There'll be cuts when I'm coughing, etc. Still poor pronunciation. I'm trying, but I'm just, I'm trying my best. It's not going to be perfect. Even my English is pretty terrible, so please be forgiving. So far, I've actually had very good interactions with people with regards to helping with pronunciations. So yeah, thank you. Keep hydrated. I will be cutting out when I'm taking drinks, but make sure that if you're watching all in one go, to also keep hydrated. So we're picking it up from page 98, just after the scene break. Even though the person he'd worked so hard to save was disgusted with him, Shen Qingqiu was incomparably satisfied. Liu Qingge should have died by his hand, but Shen Qingqiu had saved the man through a series of freak coincidences. If he could befriend Liu Qingge, even if his plan to raise Liu Binghe into a top 10 best disciple didn't succeed, as the master of Baizhan and Peak, Liu Qingge could at least stand beside him as a fellow sex sibling and help shield him a little. Although this was a little utilitarian, as his own life was on the line, it was no time for moral dilemmas. There was no sense of time within the caves. Shen Qingqiu felt like he hadn't done anything at all when the day to enter his seclusion arrived. Shen Qingqiu sat cross-legged on a stone platform, eyes shut. He kept them closed while the last wisp of spiritual energy had finished circulating through all his limbs and bones. Having intensively cultivated for several months, he could freely control his spiritual energy and had risen one level above his original cultivation base. This told him that he had obtained 100% command over his body, and even the last shreds of discoordination had been annihilated. Both his eyes shone brightly, and his immortal figure now felt distinctly different from how it had been. Shen Qingqiu jumped down from the stone platform, his body all the more graceful, as if his 4 limbs had been instilled with a breeze and filled with vigour. I liked how they showed this in the Donghua. They made his movements super floaty. Like literally when he stepped off that platform, he just basically floated down to the ground. He didn't step off, he really did float around. So I think that's really well shown. Of course, it was possible this was only his subjective feeling. After all, the days in seclusion had passed so quickly, as if he jumped ahead in the video progress bar. If this were a novel, and not one padded out like that of Great Master Airplanes, the plot would have finished it in one chapter. Before leaving, he thought he ought to greet his neighbour, and so he knocked on the stone wall. "Should he? How is your situation over there?" he asked. Shizhong will be leaving first." His voice echoed in the empty cavern. While not loud, it could clearly be heard by a cultivator like Liu Qingge. As expected, he received no response. Shen Qingqiu didn't mind. It was enough to express his kind wishes. He exited the caves like the wind whispered beneath his feet, ready to welcome the approaching storm. If he had correctly calculated the time and date, it was about time for an upcoming story event of critical importance. It could have been considered the first small climax of the early narrative. The demons would arrive, armed and eager to provoke a fight, thereby triggering mass panic. This small climax also included a brief glimpse of 2 of the book's important female leads, whereupon they'd start paying attention to Liu Binghe. The Lingxi caves were isolated from the outside world, and the interior of the caves was tranquil, but as soon as Shen Qingqiu exited them, he found the entirety of Chongding Peak consumed by fire and smoke of war. Panicked disciples ran every which way, and the alarm bells rang in united clamour. Shen Qingqiu instantly understood. They'd already appeared. Perfect timing. He'd arrived just at the right moment. As soon as they saw him, several disciples from some peak or another threw themselves at him. Shen Shibo, you've finally left seclusion. It's a disaster. Monsters from the demon realm sneaked onto Chongding Peak and injured many of our sex siblings. Shen Qingqiu patted a disciple with each hand. Settle down. Where is Zhangmen Shizhong? Zhangmen Shibo had left the mountain on an important business, Disciple A said cheerfully. Otherwise, how else could those monstrous demons have used this chance to invade? Those monstrous demons are truly despicable, Disciple B said furiously. Not only did they take advantage of our vulnerability to invade, they also severed the rainbow bridges connecting the 12 peaks and set up some strange barrier. Now Chongding Peak is completely unable to receive support from the other peaks. Shen Qingqiu knew all of this. He was just asking while passing through. As of now, he had gone through cultivation training, and on top of that had experience punching Liu Binghe and kicking Liu Qingge. Yep. With a bearing of heroic resolve that reached the heavens, he said, "No need to panic. Our Zhangchong Mountain is a majestic, unparalleled sect that has produced countless heroes. We would never fear the dregs of the demon realm." The disciples instantly felt like they found a pillar of support, and they followed behind Shen Qingqiu like a train. Along the way, the disciples who'd been flailing around like headless chickens also rushed to follow, and the ones who didn't know what was happening followed as well. In the end, the procession kept growing longer and longer until they arrived before Chongding Peak's main hall. Every single member of the Zhangchong Mountain sect on Chongding Peak had come to encircle and exterminate the demons who had overtaken it deep within. Due to plot requirements, the disciples of Qingjing Peak were all coincidentally at Chongjing Peak to greet Shen Qingqiu as he left seclusion, and they had been gathered there for a while now. Shen Qingqiu first sought out Luo Binghe's figure, and indeed he saw him standing within the group, expression solemn. It had been some time since he'd last seen the boy. He'd grown taller by a fair amount, and his youthful figure like a graceful, elongating stalk of bamboo. Along with that handsome little face, he drew a great deal of attention. Having confirmed that the protagonist was at the scene, Shen Qingqiu's heart settled, and he turned his focus to the enemy. Before the elegant, magnificent Chongding Hall stood more than 100 unknown individuals, roiling with demonic qi. The leader of this invasion was in fact a young girl, who appeared to be no more than 15 or 16. Shen Qingqiu's heart thumped with excitement. She's appeared! She's finally appeared! Demons loved exotic and unusual dress, but even among them, this girl's fashion sense was exceptionally unorthodox. Her jet-black head of hair had been combed into many small braids. Her complexion was fair, her eye makeup bold, her lips abnormally scarlet. Although she was young, it was self-evident that she would grow into a woman of overwhelmingly glamorous bearing. As it was a hot day, she had dressed lightly, having essentially only wrapped herself in several bolts of Cosy red cloth. Her wrists and ankles were decorated with silver bangles, the tiny bells on every limb jingling with her slightest movements. Her bare, snow-white feet directly touched the ground. Shen Qingqiu couldn't help side-eyeing them a couple of times. Shenwan, there's something you want to say about that? There we go. His thoughts weren't indecent, but rather, you've travelled thousands of miles from the demon realm, crossing land and sea, and after arriving you even climbed this tall mountain barefoot? Young miss, do your feet really not hurt? I love the fact that immediately after I say that, he addresses it. Wait, that wasn't the point. The point was that this was one of the most popular female leads in the novel of Proud Immortal Demon Wei, Demon Saintess Xua Hualing. Xua Hualing was a pure-blooded demon, vicious and merciless, crafty and proud, yet she was madly in love with Luo Binghe. After getting involved with Luo Binghe, not only did she kill for him, she even dared to commit an offence as monstrously treasonous as betraying the demon race. Though these days, a good number of people often denounce this trope of a brainless lovesick girl, there was nothing you could do. An even larger number of male readers loved it. A pity that a girl this spicy could only be enjoyed by the male lead. Shen Qingqiu couldn't help glancing at Luo Binghe. At the same time, Luo Binghe inadvertently swept his gaze about as well. Their two gazes met, and they both startled. Luo Binghe seemed about to speak, but he said nothing. Shen Qingqiu nodded at him. The rainbow bridges had been severed. Of the various peak lords, the ones sleeping still slept, the ones in seclusion remained in seclusion, the ones strolling kept strolling, and the ones away on official business did not return. The arrival of Shen Qingqiu, a member of the old generation, was as such powerfully reassuring. The disciples regained confidence. Mingfan was the first to yell, "Demoness, my master is here. Let's see if you'll dare to be so arrogant now." More and more people joined the gathered crowd. Several hundred disciples in uniformly coloured robes and furious expressions surrounded the invaders, trapping them in the space before the hall. Several demons tried to use the chance to break through. Perfect training targets for Shen Qingqiu. He casually grabbed them, lifted them up, and threw them back to the land at Xua Haling's feet. Xua Haling had been clever and resourceful. Her earlier arrogance had derived from the fact that, having long enjoyed being the number one sect, Sangzhong Mountain's defences were lax and loose. She had also seen Yue Qingyuan depart on official business, leaving Chongjing Peak without one of its senior members to guard it. Sensing that things had taken a turn, she changed her tune. "My people didn't climb this mountain for the sake of battle. It's just that we've long heard that Sangzhong Mountain produces many talented individuals, so we were curious. We wanted to ascend the mountain for a look, as well as to spar and learn from you." "How kind of you." Shen Qingqiu flapped his fan. "But if you've come to spar, why do so when the sect leader is away? Why sever the rainbow bridges? And why injure so many of our sect's disciples? I've never seen this method of sparring." Xua Haling bit her lip, utilising that weapon elusive to young girls. She twirled a stray lock of hair dangling beside her cheek around her finger. "This must be the renowned Xiaoye sword, Senior Shen Qingqiu," she said, drawing out each word. "As expected, hearsay can't compare to seeing the real person. Linger is young and unable to manage her subordinates. If we have offended you or caused misunderstandings, we beg the immortal master to be magnanimous and forgiving." No matter how softly she spoke, Shen Qingqiu wouldn't be moved in the slightest bit. The truth of the situation was clearer to him than anyone else. To lay it out plain, this trouble had begun when Xua Haling had been granted the title of a demon saintess, which had just happened. Being proud and arrogant, she had she had an exaggerated opinion of her own abilities. She had intended to slaughter the entirety of Sangchong Mountain's first peak in one go, then seize the nameplate hanging over the Chongding Hall as a war trophy and bring it back as a proof of her achievement. At the same time, her exploit would be a demonstration of force directed at the human realm. "Then what is the young Mrs. conclusion now?" asked Shen Cho. Shua Heling pursed her lips in a smile. "Though right now my people are at a disadvantage, that's only because your sect has such great numbers. Ling is unable to ascertain who between us would be the victor." "Oh? Then what would you need to do so?" Shen Cho asked, putting on the air of an elder as smoothly as a fish took to water. Parting her red lips, Shua Heling elegantly suggested a method that seemed fair and just. "Why don't we each choose 3 representatives and hold 3 matches?" This suggestion was solid. For many years the human and demon realms had maintained an uneasy balance and had yet to drop the pretense of peace. Eliminating Shua Heling and her mob wouldn't be impossible, but it would likely light a fuse. The demons definitely wouldn't let her death go unanswered, and it wouldn't be worth it if they stirred up an even greater conflict. On the other hand, simply letting them go would also generate trouble. They couldn't allow outsiders to come and go as they pleased from Chongding Peak. By settling conditions and holding some matches, each teaching the other party a lesson or two, both parties could back down and save face. It would be the best way to handle this. Since this was the first small climax in the original work, Shen Cho still remembered it fairly clearly. The first match was Shen Cho versus the demon elder Single Arm Doobie. To highlight Shen Cho's scummy nature, he, of course, used despicable and underhanded means to achieve victory. By comparison, Lo Binghe's honourable and upright actions in the third match illustrated a strong contrast for the readers. Now, however, Shen Cho wasn't about to so pointlessly tarnish his image. Elder Single Arm's entire body was a dark purple colour, and he was taciturn and reticent. At Shua Heiling's command, he walked towards a stretch of open ground. The sect's disciples cheered and shouted for their Shen Shibo. Shen Cho knew of the extent of this elder arm's strength. "You only have 1 arm," he said, smiling. "Even if I defeat you like this, it would be due to an unfair advantage." "Oh," Shua Heling said from behind her hand. "Actually, Linga has a solution. How about you also cut off one of your arms? That way there won't be an unfair advantage anymore." Angry protest rose all around them. Unconcerned, Shen Cho smiled slightly and slowly spread his fan. "How about this? I won't use a single hand." These words threw the crowd into an uproar. Among them, Lo Binghe also stood shocked. "Wouldn't use a single hand?" Shua Heling snorted, thinking Shen Cho was being full of himself, but she also secretly filled with endless glee. If a side could win a match so easily, why wouldn't they go for it? "Since Senior Shen is so ready, let us start," she said hurriedly. A number of bystanders realised then that this girl was actually quite brazen. Though her manner was pure and innocent, her words were vicious and sinister, and she rushed to take advantage of others. As a reader enjoying the drama, Shen Cho had come away with one impression, but experiencing the situation for himself, he came away with another. He had never really been charmed by Shua Heiling's way of dealing with things, but between her youth and her daintiness, he had at least been able to force himself to regard her behaviour as a cute lolly willfulness, until now. Under all those gazes, Shen Cho stayed true to his words and didn't draw his sword. Instead, he played with the fan in his hand, smiling at Elder Single Arm. Elder Single Arm only had the 1 arm, but that didn't even slightly hinder his ability to swing his beheading sabre. But his savage swing didn't actually hit his target. He whipped around to find Shen Cho was already standing behind him, still smiling. In truth, Shen Cho's face was getting sore. What an issue to have. However, Xiaoya had already left its sheath. Shen Cho hadn't directly touched his sword at all. His left hand had subtly formed a sword seal, commanding Xiaoya to fly and turn over, brandishing itself. Elder Single Arm's eyes were struck with pain from the flashes of the sword's snow-white gleam. He rushed to lift his sabre and attack again. Sabre and sword clashed in a succession of incessant ringing clangs while sparks sprayed and danced. The crowd was unable to tear their eyes away. In reality, this was just a competition, but anyone would have called it both captivating and captivating. The first captivating encompassed the impressiveness of the fight, where the use of real weapons made it a matter of life and death. But what made it captivating were the magnificent visual effects, especially Shen Cho, who moved with such skill and ease in his pure and scholarly way, surrounded by the glint and flash of blades. On top of this, he continued to gracefully and leisurely fan himself with his paper fan. It was as if any instant he would compose a poem within 7 steps. So that's got like a figure of legend. So within 7 steps has a footnote. According to legend, the emperor demanded the poet Cao Zhi compose a poem within 7 steps to prove he was an innocent of treason. Describes extraordinary literary talent. Such utterly breathtaking style. No, achieving this level of badass was far too perfect. As Luo Binghe watched, his heart practically galloped and his soul trembled. He'd known Shou Qingqiu was incredible, but he'd never anticipated that he was this incredible. So strong. Surrounded by the cheers of the sect's disciples, Shen Qingqiu attained a complete victory in the first match. See, this is what, again, to be fair, this is pretty much all the amount of time the Donghuo also spent on it. Like, they really showed off the fact that Shen Qingqiu was very relaxed and calm during the fight, and it looked very cool. But yeah, there is something to say about being able to actually watch fights. I do think it brings something to it, but I do love the way that like it's been described here as well. Like, they've actually captured the essence of the fight perfectly. Well, obviously they're the original one, but like with the way that they've described it, you can imagine the essence of the fight like perfectly. You wouldn't need to have that visual thing. It's just fun to watch. At this moment, Shen Qingqiu realised why the original flavour had clung to being a poser like it was his lifeline. It was unbelievably satisfying. The disciples' gaze formed a sea of sparkling stars. What an inspiring experience. Shen Qingqiu was certain now. The Scum villain could also gain reputation points. At the same time, the system also gave him good news. Demonic invasion of the Immortals Mountain. First match of the competition. Shen Qingqiu's victory. Martial rating skill plus 50. B points plus 50. Shen Qingqiu's pleased smile didn't last long. The system's next notification came like a slap to the face. System alert. If Luo Binghe does not participate in the competition, 1,000 points will be deducted from the protagonist's satisfaction points. What? Completely unprepared, Shen Qingqiu turned pale with shock. He had been labouring to earn satisfaction points, huffing and puffing like an old ox dragging a broken cart, and only managed to earn somewhere in the 300s, and in an instant he risked losing 1,000. System, are you trying to get people killed? This competition was an important part of the plot. At the same time, it also served as a small, early-stage climax that debuted 2 female leads and pitted their splendour against each other, and the consequences of it later enabled the protagonist to get an underling and also allowed him to learn secret techniques. All important things. If Luo Binghe didn't make it on stage this time, he would miss the limelight and be unable to grab everyone's attention. Hence, negative 1,000 satisfaction points. But if Shen Qingqiu named him a sect representative and sent him out to fight, what would he be doing? The original flavour pushed Luo Binghe into the battlefield because he was shameless. He didn't care about the sect's reputation. He hated Luo Binghe to the bone, enough to want to vicariously torture him via the hands of demons. The current Shen Qingqiu didn't share any of those 3 motives. And at the end of everything, why was someone else responsible for the oh-so-mighty protagonist's satisfaction points? Shen Qingqiu was still angrily rebuking the system for its unscientific approach when the time came for the start of the second match. Shuo Haling had been afraid that Shen Qingqiu would fight all 3 matches himself and swiftly said, "If the same representative competes in all 3 matches, we would lose the chance to truly learn from each other. I will be my people's representative for the second match." No doubt Shuo Haling had entered first because she believed in her own strength, but she also likely thought that Shen Qingqiu wouldn't use his senior position to bully a girl who was his junior. Shen Qingqiu didn't want to concern himself with her thoughts at all, and demonstrated as much. Even if he'd originally had the ambition to fight all 3 matches to earn martial ability points and reputation, the system's notification had extinguished those hopes. However, the second match did have an impressive, attention-worthy highlight. "You've all heard her," said Shen Qingqiu. "Who is willing to bear this heavy duty?" Even though he was asking all the disciples of the sect, his gaze fell on a certain pocket of the crowd. Within that pocket stood a collection of graceful female disciples. Without a doubt, they belonged to Xianshu Peak. In this group of pretty girls, each fairer, more beautiful, and more refined than the last, one stood out, a veil draped over her face. Immediately after Shen Qingqiu asked this question, she slowly stepped forward from the crowd. "Ah!" Despite himself, a burst of excitement fluttered in Shen Qingqiu. "It's here! It's almost here! The 2 biggest female leads in this book. Their first 1v1. Liu Mingyan was a great beauty, a heaven and earth-shattering great beauty at the sight of whom both gods and ghosts would weep. Even though she belonged to Xianshu Peak, which had produced generations of beautiful women since ancient times, she was still a crane among chickens, rising above and beyond them all. Her older brother was Baishan Peak's master, but she was younger, and she'd entered the sect later and become a disciple of Xianshu Peak's next generation. Because her face was excessively beautiful, capable of stealing souls, she had to hide it behind a veil all year round, rendering her like unto a flower on a high cliff, unattainable and out of reach. In brief, for the purpose of describing this character's appearance, Master Airplane Shooting Towards the Sky had probably used every single flattering vocabulary word and idiom he'd learned from elementary through to high school. He must have had it hard. Shen Qingqiu was very fond of this female lead, and it wasn't only because Liu Mingyan's beauty points were the highest, it was also because she had great poise. She always understood the big picture and grasped the general situation, and her conduct was fair and honest. Even in Luo Binghe's gigantic harem, a wife with both intelligence and moral character was rare. There was one more appeal factor. Liu Mingyan was the only female character for whom Airplane Shooting Towards the Sky didn't write detailed sex scenes. Many readers had been highly dissatisfied with this arrangement, to the point that they spammed the comments with their ranting, but this had given Liu Mingyan something no other female lead had, an image as clear as ice and as pure as jade. Can't be helped, the unobtainable ones are always the best. Shrug face. This is what made the second match worth watching. An evil demon... Oh, I forgot to show. This gorgeous art. It's actually happening a couple of seconds later. Either he's describing this whilst the match is going on. I don't think it had started. But that's them. God, I love all the art in this. 1 second. Illustrated by Xiao Tong Kong. Xiao Tong Kong. Again, sorry if poor pronunciation, but absolutely adore the illustrations. I love them. I also love the fact that at the bottom, little like Luo Binghe next to his Shizhen. Like he's just this whole match is going on and everything. It does seem like he might be looking at his Shizhen instead, which is a fab like detail. Either that or he's looking at Shuo Hualing, but like I don't know. He's got his head turned towards his Shizhen, so. This is what made the second match worth watching. An evil demoness naturally demanded a righteous saintess as a rival. Every man dreamed of being caught between an angel and a devil, to watch them jealously vie with each other over him one moment, then risk life and limb for his sake in the next. That was the highest, most sacred, perverted fantasy of every male organism. He could get drunk of the wild, untamed charm of the wicked seductress, and at the same time his heart would ache for the austere taste of the pure saintess who kept pulling him closer only to push him away. One had to admit, Great Master Airplane was genuinely good at nailing what people found satisfying. Shen Qingqiu couldn't help giving Luo Binghe another glance. Luo Binghe found it very hard not to care about that gaze. Why exactly did Shen Qingqiu keep looking at him? Was it possible that Shizhen really had an interest in him? That's what I mean. I think this is the thing that's going on in the background of that illustration. He's doing the why does Shizhen keep looking at me? Is he interested in me? Love him. So cute. What a pity that under Great Master Airplane Shooting Towards the Sky's pen, battles between female characters usually lacked any standout moments, other than ripping beep. Censored. Other than ripping for the male gaze. No. Actually, if Shen Qingqiu thought about it, it was written by the Great Master. None of the battles had any memorable moments. It was always the same tired phrases like a lightning, light like a lightning flash, colourful as a rainbow, sword glares of every colour, horrifying as a monster, etc. Several incidents times later, Liu Mingyan lost. After all, at this time she hadn't yet gone to Wangjiang Peak to claim her personal sword. Even though she did her utmost, her weapon was only a slender ordinary blade, while Shuo Hualing was already a demon saintess with saintly weapons in ready supply at her beck and call. Naturally, there was a gap between their abilities. So I like the take of this in the donghua as well. It's so funny. It's like, it's super elegant, like really, like they're dancing around each other, and then he just looks away for a second, looks back, and it's over. Just like, what happened? There's no details in the writing, and therefore there's no details in the actual fight. I love it. Liu Mingyan approached Shen Qingqiu. This disciple has lost. For failing the mission, I request Shen Shubo's punishment. When no one else would come forward, you assumed this responsibility, said Shen Qingqiu. This fight would never have been easy. Whether you attain victory or suffer defeat, both were acceptable outcomes. You need not be concerned. You need only take back the victory in the future. Having taken the second round, Shuo Heling's face was glowing, and she laughed delicately. This last match will decide the overall victor. I wonder who Senior Shen was sent out. This time you must choose carefully. Shen Qingqiu stood with his hands clasped behind his back. The young miss need not worry, he said with a profound air. This one has long since decided on a representative, and can guarantee that, no matter if he wins or loses, he will become your life's bane. Shuo Heling took these words as merely his attempt at intimidation. She clapped her hands. Which brave warrior will take the third match? From the crowd of demons, a giant elder slowly walked out. He was giant because he really was unfairly tall. Definitely more than 3 meters, wouldn't you say? Built like a bear, he had a head of dishevelled hair and armour that covered him from head to toe with spikes. He dragged a giant iron hammer behind him. Shen Qingqiu was positive that the ground quaked lightly with every step he took. First, to give you all warning, the spikes on Elder Skyhammer Tian Chui's armour are coated with a highly toxic poison. Shuo Heling said gleefully, This poison is ineffective against demons, but if it enters a human body, there is no cure. The first thought Shen Qingqiu had was, shit, great master airplane shooting towards the sky. Don't just name things whatever without thinking. Calling the one with only one arm, Elder Single Arm, Doobie, and then calling the one whose weapon was a giant hammer, Elder Sky Hammer, Tian Chui. Are you afraid of naming things properly? Meanwhile, Shuo Heling's words had triggered a wave of anger in the onlookers. Piece of shit, demoness. If you want to compete, then compete. How can you say it's fair to use poison? I didn't conceal the information, did I? Shuo Heling retorted. If you think it's unfair, or are afraid of losing your life, then forfeit the match and admit defeat. Then you won't need to compete anymore. We demons won't mock you. It's a human nature to value your lives, but my people value glory over everything else. Between the demons' roaring laughter and the disciples' cries of condemnation, Shen Qingqiu rubbed the crease between his brows and silently sighed. From the reader's perspective, where you could live in the fantasy of being the protagonist, of course you'd love a woman like Shuo Heling and find her satisfying. But once you were a person facing off with her in reality, he couldn't believe anyone could bring themselves to like her. It wasn't that she was different from how she'd been described in the story. In fact, the problem was that she was exactly as advertised. Cruel and vicious, combined with an infatuation that made her throw her brain away. If you weren't the protagonist, you'd better run the hell away. The moment you threatened her or Luo Binghe's interests even the tiniest bit, she'd want your life. She wouldn't even think of alternatives like chopping off your hands or feet or gouging out your eyes. Even if you were her father, you had to be careful. In the original work, to help Luo Binghe gain standing in the demon realm, she backstabbed the guy. Shen Qingqiu remained unflappable in the face of Shuo Heling's provocations. He maintained his silence for a stretch, using the time to stare intently at the crowd of demons. Only at the end did he turn, fixing his gaze in a certain person's direction. Luo Binghe, come here. Qing Peak's disciples fell into an uproar. The disciples from the other branches were calmer, as they weren't familiar with Qing Peak's internal politics. They even thought that Shen Qingqiu had certainly selected a disciple he was proud of, an unparalleled talent. That was the only way they could hope to best this demon elder who appeared to be in his hundreds. It was strange that they'd never heard of this person, and he did seem rather young. Was it possible that Qing Peak's disciples weren't yet aware of Luo Binghe's true abilities? Ming Fan's face had gone white. Shouldn't, he stammered, to send this little to send Luo Shidi, isn't it unbefitting? Oh, said Shen Qingqiu. Then will you go? Ming Fan repeatedly shook his head. Even though he didn't want to offer himself, and he would be happy to see Luo Binghe beaten to a pulp, this matter concerned their sex honour. To let themselves be invaded and a Peak's nameplate taken, and to set themselves up to lose this competition, Zhangchong Mountain would lose face, and Qingjing Peak would lose a massive amount of face. Ning Ying was even more anxious, to the point that she teared up. She defiantly grabbed Luo Binghe's arm while stomping and yelling, No, no, no! Lo Bing-he had no real battle experience, and if he had to face a demon elder covered from head to toe with spikes and poison, carrying a hammer that weighed at least several hundred kilograms, he'd definitely be beaten to death. You lot think I want him to enter? I was also forced into this. I have no choice. Even so, Shen Qingqiu stated, I said he'll be our representative, so he will. Are you unsatisfied with this master's decision? Ying Ying, let go of him. Ning Ying Ying saw the stony look on her master's face and knew there was nothing she could do. Lo Bing-he patted her soothingly. Don't worry, Shijie, he spoke in a steady tone, even though his face was a stark white. I may be untalented, but if Shizhuan has chosen me, I will spare no effort. Even if I must stake my life, I won't lose face for the sect. Ning Ying Ying rolled away her tears and let go of Lo Bing-he's arm. As if she couldn't stand to stay there and watch her crust take a beating, she stomped her feet several times and ran off, whimpering. Shen Qingqiu was overjoyed. Good, run. If she ran, then the trouble she was supposed to make after this drama wouldn't crop up. Oh, won't it? The crowd saw that although the youth who approached was upright and honourable in body and spirit, with good potential and foundation, he was clearly a young disciple with shallow cultivation. In contrast, the demon representative Elder Skyhammer loomed with his bear-like build. Compared to Lo Bing-he's still developing figure, he radiated an oppressive aura, his entire body emitting dark, roiling demonic chi. Everyone felt hesitation. Some hypothesized that perhaps Lo Bing-he was hiding his strength, but when the fight actually started, they were rendered speechless. Hiding his strength? No, this kid really wouldn't be able to beat that guy. This wasn't a match, it was a one-sided beatdown. From the moment Lo Bing-he stepped forward, he essentially had no chance to strike. The demon elder's strength was incomparable, his swings filled with the vigour of a tiger. Even though Lo Bing-he did his best to dodge and search for an opening to attack, from time to time the hammer still managed to smash into him. Not only were Sangchong Mountain's disciples dumbstruck, the demons were also at a loss for words. This was too horrible. Isn't this outcome predetermined? Someone muttered. What's the point of continuing the match? Elder Skyhammer laughed. Just showing how ridiculous the name is. Elder Skyhammer laughed skyward, the sound like a great bell. Well said. The child should hurry up and admit defeat. Then this elder can still spare his life. He will win, Shen Qingqiu said lightly. Bullshit. Lo Bing-he was the overpowered protagonist. Of course he was going to win. It was only that the path to victory would be difficult. Shen Qingqiu's voice was neither loud nor soft, but it had just enough volume to carry to the centre of the match area. Lo Bing-he had directly taken multiple heavy blows, and he was holding back several mouthfuls of blood. When those confident words entered his ears, he somehow managed to swallow it down. He would win? Shizhuan had called on him to enter because he really thought Lo Bing-he would win? The horde of demons laughed and jeered. They shouted at Lo Bing-he to hurry and admit defeat. Yet Lo Bing-he did not heed their wishes. Even as he took several more blows in a row, he became more and more poised, turning a deaf ear to the jeers and shouts of the crowd. His steps became lighter and more graceful. Soon, 9 times out of 10, Elder Skyhammer's giant weapon couldn't so much as brush him. The only places on Elder Skyhammer's body that weren't covered with spikes were his face and fists. This wasn't actually good news. It doubtless meant that the elder had extensively trained those 2 places so they wouldn't be vulnerable even without the protection of the poisonous spikes. At the same time, this was also very likely the only breach in his defences. Lo Bing-he slowed his breaths and attentively studied his opponent. On the surface, it seemed that Shizhuan had chosen Lo Bing-he only to make things difficult for him. However, if Lo Bing-he had lost this round, not only would he lose face, but the entire sect would as well. And, furthermore, as the one who'd chosen to put him forward, Shen Qingqiu would be especially at fault. That meant that Shizhuan would have only chosen Lo Bing-he for this match if he really did firmly believe he would win. Thus did student Lo Bing-he's colourful imagination successfully activate the massive fog of misunderstanding system. Oh my god. No one had ever believed in him like this. If only because he'd been entrusted with something so vitally important, he absolutely had to win and make everyone see. Once again, that huge hammer came whistling toward him. Lo Bing-he's pupils shrank, and gathering energy within palms, he condensed his chi into an attack. The audience had been enthralled by this youth who kept persevering without hesitation. Though Lo Bing-he had no opportunities to counterattack, he never gave up looking for a chance to do so, and he furthermore refused to admit defeat. At this instant, when the chance to counterattack finally came, Lo Bing-he seized it with incomparable precision. The deadlock had lasted for nearly an hour, but the third match finally came to an end. Other than Shen Qingqiu, no one had anticipated this conclusion. Yeah, so I love this. I love the way that Mo Xiang Tongxie, actually, in this one, it has so much fun with the writing. There's so many, I don't know, she'll say something and then be hypocritical about it. So oh, I hate, as in through the character saying for Shen Yuan saying, oh, I hate it when Great Master airplane shooting towards the sky does this, but then the actual writing does it itself. So talking about again a lack of detail in the fights, and yet this fight has basically been Lo Binghe keeps getting hit by the hammer, he hears his Shizhuan, and then manages to start evading the hammer, gathers his chi, attacks, and wins. And that's it. I so again, in the Donghua there's more detail, which it's fun to watch it, but it's just a lot of fun, those kind of details. Elder Skyhammer, who was covered from head to toe in poisonous spikes and boasted 100 years' worth of skill, had been defeated by a youth of 15 years. Sure enough, Liu Qingme... What happened there? Sure enough, Liu Mingyan and Shua Heling were drawn to Lo Binghe. Two pairs of beautiful eyes fixed neatly upon him, gazing at Lo Binghe's form and unwilling to divert their attention. Captured, Lo Mingyan and Shua Heling's interests, became famous in a fight during the battle with demons who invaded Xiangchong Mountain Sect. Protagonist satisfaction points, plus 500. Shen Qingqiu was furious. How dare you? The deduction would have been 1,000, but the profit was only 500. Black-hearted system, double standards, holding dog. However, it was fine, because now everyone was thinking the same thing. Though young, Lo Binghe was truly worthy of respect. Shen Qingqiu had truly had inscrutable depths. Shualing held herself back for a long while, then finally squeezed out her concession. Zhangchong Mountain is certainly full of talent, and has produced generations of young heroes. Ling is indeed impressed. Well said, said Jing Qingqiu. Since we have our result, could this young miss withdraw with her people? Please excuse us for being such a mess right now. We're unable to continue entertaining our guests from far away. The meaning hidden within his words, well, it wasn't hidden. This was direct command telling him to get out. Shua Heling was filled with anger, but there was nowhere for it to go. Her fingers clenched in the gauzy red cloth on her body for a moment, then she suddenly exploded. She reached out and gave Elder Skyhammer a fast and violent slap. To face Senior Shen's young disciple, and yet to lose so badly, her sweet voice said angrily. You've lost every last bit of faith for the demon race. Elder Skyhammer was also pitiable. Hierarchy within the demon realm was strict, and Shua Heling was a saintess of noble birth. He took the slap and could only grovel. He dared not fight back, only saying again and again, Your subordinate is incompetent and begs the saintess for punishment. Shen Qingqiu couldn't stand watching any more. Miss Shah, if you would wish to discipline your subordinates, please do so somewhere else. Zhongding Peak is not a place for the nobility to throw their weight around. With that slap, Shua Heling had vented her anger, finally releasing some of her resentment. She turned back full of smiles. It is as you say, Senior Shen. I was just, when Ling saw this incredible young talent you foster, then looked at the trash under her, her heart was filled with disappointment, so she lost control for a moment. I beg you not to laugh. She then turned, facing Elder Skyhammer with the expression of a wicked stepmother, one as cold as a refrigerator. For Elder Singer Arm to lose to Senior Shen in their match was a matter of course. Yet you also lost your match. There is no need for me to say anything. Figure out what to do yourself. As to what she meant by this, Elder Skyhammer clearly understood. His heart chilled on the spot. When they arrived, he thought that other than Shen Qingqiu, the people of Zhongding Peak were a bunch of half-grown children, disciples with shallow cultivation. Hence he'd wanted to take advantage of easy pickings to earn favour before the new saintess. He'd never thought that he'd fail terribly instead, to the point that he would lose his life. He looked up and saw Lo Binghe, surrounded by the crowd, all asking concernedly after his well-being. Malice surged within him. He didn't dare touch Shen Qingqiu, but this child who'd brought him so much misfortune, he absolutely had to make him take his fair share of the blame, to drag him to death as well. Shen Qingqiu had been paying close attention to the demon's every movement and expression. He didn't miss the flash of nefarious intent in Elder Skyhammer's eyes, but demons were truly a bold race, taking action immediately and without even the slightest bit of buffering time. Only a second after coming up with the idea, Elder Skyhammer careened forwards, swinging his weapon. Elder Skyhammer's body was large and tall, and he quickly closed the distance, like a mountain of metal hurtling towards Lo Bing-he. Lo Bing-he's injuries weren't light, and so his movements were sluggish. He would certainly be hit. Yet Shen Cho let out a cold humph, and in a flash his figure suddenly appeared in Elder Skyhammer's path. With the tip of his fan, he tapped the bend of Elder Skyhammer's knee. Elder Skyhammer collapsed on the spot. He really collapsed. His entire body crashed to the ground, unconscious. As for that giant hammer, Shen Cho casually scooped it up and held it in his hand, weighing it. As expected, it was a tad hefty. However, given the elegant quality of his image, holding a giant hammer wasn't very aesthetic, so Shen Cho immediately held it into the horde of demons. With a muffled thud, the head of the hammer slammed into the ground. The display was significantly shocking, and his intimidating air became even more terrifying. Shen Cho's smile didn't reach his eyes. You wanted to kill him? The disciples under my tutelage are not yours to bully. When he spoke these words with awe-inspiring righteousness, not only were the demons at a loss for words, Shen Cho himself felt that his inner face reddened slightly. Immortal Master, weren't you the one who sent your disciple out to be abused by others? Lo Bing-he stared at the teal-clothed back before him, having forgotten to even say thanks. He only knew that his master had saved him yet again. Shizhuan was always like this. He would seem to be harsh on Lo Bing-he, yet when it came down to the critical moment, he always stood before his student. Shen Cho threw a glance behind him. Are you all right? Gonna shamelessly try and farm some more favour points? This disciple is fine, Lo Bing-he said in a rush. Many thanks to Shizhuan for the assistance. This child is so foolishly sweet. Shen Cho's inner face grew even redder, and he quickly turned back to Shua Ling. Miss Shah, you need to properly discipline your subordinates. If you can't stand losing, why set yourselves up for the potential of it with these 3 matches? Shua Ling also hadn't predicted Elder Skyhammer's attack and was slightly embarrassed. She was about to say a couple of perfunctory words appropriate for an apology, when at that instant something happened that no one could have predicted. Elder Skyhammer, who'd been lying motionless on the ground, suddenly leapt up and hurled himself at Lo Bing-he a second time. Shen Cho had already taken his hammer. Did he intend to use his body to crush Lo Bing-he? But as Shen Cho took in Elder Hammer's open arms and his pose that seemed like he was about to embrace Lo Bing-he, his thoughts suddenly made several lightning-like turns, and his entire body broke out into a cosy, "Fuck me! You're still wearing the poison-spiked armour?" In that instant, Shen Cho completely forgot about Lo Bing-he's plot armour, and at the moment of truth, subconsciously, he once again moved to protect his student. Emphasis on subconsciously. Love that. Shoya left its sheath, blade flashed bright as snow, and pierced Elder Skyhammer's hulking body. But the demon had an entire body's worth of brute force and an all-out effort within him, and he didn't back down even when skewered. Instead, he seemed overjoyed, relentlessly careening forwards, forcing Shoya to run clean through him and out his back, his face stretched in a sinister grin. And he threw himself at Shen Cho. Shen Cho swiftly made his decision. He promptly withdrew his attack, but it was already too late. From his right arm came stabs of pain, and his heart chilled down to the steps. Skyhammer collapsed to the ground, spat out a mouthful of blood, and laughed madly. Shen Cho, I've taken you down with me. Worth it, it was worth it. Shizhuan! Lo Bing-he grabbed Shen Cho's right hand. You've been pierced? Shen Cho wrenched his hand free. Nothing's wrong, I wasn't pierced. Don't listen to the ravings of a blowhard. As he spoke, he glanced down, and his heart was once again blotted out by a frantic scream of fuck, 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 fuck. From the back of his hand to his forearm were rows and rows of tiny pinholes. They were already turning red. Luckily, he didn't have tryptophobia. However, once Lo Bing-he saw his arm, his face went completely white. No one could hear the raging waves in Shen Cho's heart. Motherfucker, how many times the male lead screwed you over? You were already told that he wouldn't die, remember? He won't die. Why did you go out of your way to rush to rescue him? Fuck! Elder Skyhammer had finally dragged someone down with him, and it was a heavy weight. This elder has never spoken only to scare, he said gleefully, no longer even a bit depressed. If I say this poison has no cure, then it has no cure. Peak Lord Shen, sit back and await your death. And then we just have... oh my god, poor baby. Ooh. We have Shen Cho being like withdrawing at the last second, and we have little Bing-he behind him looking absolutely like devastated, shocked, terrified all at once. Oh my god. A blade flashed. Lobingho pulled out Shioya and held it to the demon's throat, his movements so matchlessly agile that Shen Qingqiu nearly missed them. It seemed suddenly as if Lobingho were another person. "Your people must have a cure," he said coldly. "If you don't hand over the antidote, I will definitely kill you first." "Young master, Elder Skyhammer truly wasn't lying," Schwaheling interrupted. "This poison is called without a cure. When it comes to humans, it indeed has no cure. The Elder has lost this match and done something truly disgraceful. He knows only death awaits him. Why would he fear your threat? Without a cure. Never had less effort been put into naming a poison." Even though Shen Qingqiu had read the original work and had long known about this rare poison, he couldn't help lampshading and ranting about the pragmatism of great master airplane shooting towards the sky's naming sense. Schwaheling's eyes flashed. The sudden twist in circumstances had clearly inspired her to resume scheming something malicious. Shen Qingqiu nursed no illusions about her character. He circulated his spiritual power to suppress the continuous waves of pain and twitching in his right arm, while his lips curved in a smile, purposely putting on a mask of effortlessness. "Your words aren't wrong, but has Miss Shao forgotten that I've already cultivated for many years? Having achieved mid-core formation stage, can I still be considered a common person?" Schwaheling's expression tightened. However, it quickly settled again, and she laughed delicately. "Whether you're common or not, I don't know, but I do know a method by which we can determine whether Senior Shen has been successfully poisoned. When a person is affected without a cure, starting from their wound, their spiritual flow becomes disconnected. This schism slowly spreads to their entire body. In the end, not only does their spiritual chi coagulate and stagnate, so does their blood. I asked Senior Shen to unleash a spiritual blast with his right hand. Then we will understand." A spiritual blast, as the name implied, involved massing a large amount of spiritual energy into a single point, then let it violently explode, using the waves of spiritual energy's powerful oscillations as an attack. The effect was similar to pulling a trigger and firing a bullet, or hurling a detonator. It seemed that in reality the impact depended on the cultivation of the user. Shen Qingqiu had attempted it privately himself and had been able to achieve an effect equivalent to throwing a grenade. But now his right arm was akin to an intricate robot whose parts had short-circuited. He nevertheless exerted himself, but his spiritual flow had been completely cut off. God damn it, he couldn't have been crippled just like that, right? Upon hearing the description of without a cure, Lobingho's lips trembled. In this moment, all the wrongs Shen Qingqiu had committed against him in the past were wiped clean from his heart. The only thing he knew with absolute clarity was that the demons had harmed his teacher to the point that he might be crippled. He might even lose his life. And all because of him. Shen Qingqiu saw Lobingho's expression fluctuate, and he nonchalantly patted his student's head. "No need to worry." Head pats. So powerful. Then Shen Qingqiu lifted his eyes, smiling slyly. "There's no harm in trying. Only I can't do this without some recompense. Miss Shah, today you ran amok on Chongding Peak, and this one has put up with it thus far. Now I've changed my mind. I can't let you come and go as you please. If I do, won't Sangchong Mountain Sect be a laughingstock? How about we exchange a single palm strike under a contract of life and death? No matter who is injured and how, we bear all the blame ourselves. Whatever the result, we must accept it completely." Well, he couldn't show weakness now. All of Chongding Peak was depending on him, the only available member of the older generation, to support them. Schwaheling had been too merciless to pass up the opportunity if he fell. Best case scenario, the demons would destroy Chongding Hall, then carry its nameplated mountain gates back to the demon realm, and thereafter their sect's reputation would plummet. Worst case scenario, it would be a massacre. He had no doubts that this woman was entirely capable of doing something like that. Better by far to take a desperate risk and make this one last gamble. He could totally take her out too. Shen Qingqiu hadn't noticed that, unconsciously, he no longer considered the disciples around him, whether they were anxious, resolute, furious, or indecisive, to be mob characters the novel had described in a scant number of words. I love Shen Yuan. He cares about the little people because he's just seeing them as people. It's like when he was earlier trying to force himself to convince himself like why it was okay to kill the demon, the Skinner demon. Like he was saying, it's a novel. I had to do it to save my own life, and they'd killed loads of people, but even then it was still hard. And now he can't just ignore the literal background characters, the actual mob characters in the story, because they are real to him now. They're actual people to him now. He actually cares. So even though earlier he was saying, disciple A, disciple B, pretty much just naming them as like side characters because they wouldn't have names, he's actually caring about them. The fact that there could be a massacre that would kill them all actually matters to him. Because he doesn't have to worry about Lo Bing-he. As has been said before, he's invincible. He cannot be killed. Shua Haoling bit at her lip, incredibly torn. If Shen Qingqiu hadn't really been poisoned, this exchange of blows would directly pit their spiritual strengths against each other, and she would definitely be killed. But if he was only bluffing, and she missed the chance to wipe out Chongjing Peak, wouldn't she regret it for the rest of her life? Shen Qingqiu calmly regarded her. His expression was neither that of anticipation nor avoidance as he awaited her decision. Lo Bing-he tugged on his sleeve. Shizhen, this disciple is willing to take Shizhen's place and receive this strike. Shen Qingqiu yanked back his sleeve, expression unchanging. In what universe is it acceptable for a master to cower behind his own disciple? Shizhen was injured for this disciple's sake. Shen Qingqiu glared at him. Since you know it was for your sake, then put some effort into protecting your life. Lo Bing-he's heart suffered a heavy blow. He was unable to speak, but the rims of his eyes reddened. At last, Shua Haoling gritted her teeth. Then, Senior Shen, please forgive Ling-er's rudeness. Come, show no mercy, and let fate decide who lives or dies, Shen Qingqiu replied. Shua Haoling's heart thundered in her chest, and she didn't dare respond. Her fire-red figure rose with a leap, and she charged forth, her snow-white, jade-like palm billowing with potent black demonic chi. Shen Qingqiu kicked Lo Bing-he aside, having made his preparations. With this one strike, he'd ensure there were no winners. However, he was not sent flying by Shua Haoling's palm strike, nor did he cough up fresh blood as his body self-destructed and killed him. Roiling with killing intent, the master of Baijian Peak, whose sword had already left its sheath, even without lifting a single finger and only using the spiritual power bursting forth from his body, blasted away Shua Haoling even as she was attacking with her full strength. After a short silence, Chongjing Peak boiled over. Liu Shushu, left seclusion. The Baijian Peak Mall God has left seclusion. You demons, let's see if you can still be arrogant now. The cheers were greater than the total amount of badass poser points Shen Qingqiu had painstakingly farmed up until now. A rain of tears showered down on Shen Qingqiu's heart. You damn show-off. Would it kill you to arrive sooner? How about you leave some badass points for me? Next, this world proved itself to be truly that of a fan service packed stallion novel. After Shua Haoling was blasted away, she let out a single delicate stream, and the gauzy red cloth draped over her body, that had barely covered anything in the first place, also tore to shreds, eliciting a series of alarmed cries from the onlookers. She cushioned her landing with a beautifully executed roll, propelling herself to standing in a single moment. Demons were indeed bold and unrestrained, even though her entire body was censored out. Oh my god. Shua Haoling wasn't ashamed in the slightest. She spitefully tore off the cloak of a subordinate beside her, carelessly throwing it over herself. I underestimated you today, she said, but we will definitely meet again in the future. Let's go. Liu Qingge sneered. Coming and going as you please? How shameless. Dream on. His posture shifted and his sword, Qingyuan, soared into the sky, summoning sword glares by hundreds and thousands, which arranged themselves into a glowing array before stabbing downward, descending like rain and hail on the demon horde. Shua Haoling led her troops, and that sounds more like the attack that Lo Bing-he didn't. Was it Lo Bing-he who did like loads of little swords raining down in his third match? Because he did a load of talismans as well. I think it was swords, or maybe it was just the talismans. I can't remember. But then I remember Liu Qingge's blade just was enormous, like it grew huge. I think from what I remember. Shua Haoling led her troops and fled while summoning a bolt of red gauze over her head, which she threw upward. Unfortunately, it simply couldn't block the fierce rain of sword glares. The red gauze was quickly pierced full of holes. On top of that, Sangchong Mountain sect's disciples were hemming the demons in, so most of the horde suffered great injuries or were captured. Only the small heart of the group that kept near Shua Haoling managed to escape down the mountain, thoroughly battered and humiliated. After returning his sword to its sheath, Liu Qingge turned, stone-faced, to examine the condition of the wound on Shen Qingqiu's arm. The Qingjing Peak disciples also came to surround them. More than 10 faces, all filled with the same anxious expression. Shen Qingqiu sighed. It was definitely the right decision to send Ying to copy Xueye and pound on the wall of Lingxi caves, wailing until he came out. Nickname for actress Wang Lin. Name for actress Wang Ling, after the character she played in the Chinese soap opera Romance in the Rain. One of her most famous scenes involves her banging on the door to confront the girl who stole her fiancé. Who Shui Yi? Asked Lin Chingge. World's greatest beauty, said Ching Ching Cho. How am I? Liu Chingge humph. You won't die for now. Though he said this, he didn't stop sending spiritual energy into Shen Qingqiu's body, through his left hand, and his expression became increasingly grave. Shen Qingqiu looked at his hand, and Liu Chingge emphatically clarified, I'm repaying my debt from the Lingxi caves. So damn tsundere. His plan to recruit Liu Chingge was as a teammate had promised, but the meridians of Shen Qingqiu's entire body subsequently underwent a series of convulsions, and he was unable to smile. Liu Shushu, does the poison without a cure truly have no cure? Luo Binghe asked. Liu Chingge glanced at him, but before he could answer, Shen Qingqiu's knees wobbled, and he almost fell into a kneel. Luckily, Luo Binghe had been supporting him the entire time, but Shen Qingqiu really couldn't stand anymore. He waved his hand. Let me lie down for a while. Luo Binghe had never seen Shen Qingqiu so weak. He knelt beside Shen Qingqiu with bloodshot eyes, choking on sobs. Shushan. With great difficulty, Shen Qingqiu lifted an arm and patted Binghe's head like he'd always wanted to. Like he always wanted to. The mouthful of fresh blood he'd been holding back finally spilled falteringly forth. Even though it was going to be like this, he persisted and tenaciously offered a crucial line to far more favour. I knew that you'd definitely win. Upon hearing this, a tremor travelled through Luo Binghe's entire body. Thinking about it afterward, Shen Qingqiu concluded that if he'd been looking at this from an omniscient reader's point of view, he'd have an outburst, smashing the book down and cursing, the fuck is with this character, huh? Hurting him one moment and saving him the next. He's messed up in the head. Multiple personalities. Nutjob. At this time, the system sent a notification. Shen Qingqiu's character complexity rating +20. Character depth rating +20. Character suspense rating +10. Total B points +50. Shen Qingqiu was horrified. This was how character depth was calculated? Also, please don't randomly create strange point types, thank you. His vision was going dark. Shen Qingqiu lifted his head, and he thought he saw Luo Binghe's tears falling from his eyes like pearls. He had to be mistaken. That was his last thought before he lost consciousness. That was chapter 2. So I think oh my gosh. It does not appear that chapter 3 has any scene breaks. I think I will probably leave it there and do this as a part 2 to chapter 2. And then we can just start with chapter 3 and probably do the entirety of chapter 3 as next time's reading session. We're about a third of the way through the book now. And what fun. Actually, yeah, I think it's a very good place to stop, actually. It's a quite a conclusive scene end. Oh my god. I feel I've been there so much. I mean, I was going through it as I was reading it, but poor Luo Binghe still. Well, okay, so now he's kind of a little bit less. It's still probably a little bit confusing, but his heart's kind of like now set. He's like in that match. He's like he's forgotten all the horrible things that the original Shen Qingqiu had done to him, because undoubtedly in his mind, his Shizhuan was risking his life for Luo Binghe, and believed in him strong enough, even against this really powerful opponent, to risk not only their sect and their mountain's reputation, but his own. So he was putting it all on Luo Binghe. He was trusting him with it, and so Luo Binghe, and oh god, Luo Binghe's like little things, especially in the illustration, but Liu Binghe's thing about like Sichuan keeps looking at me. Is he actually interested in me? Like, love that. It's so good. Oh my god. Otherwise, I really liked seeing more of the characters, but I really like the kind of revelations that were happening, not only to Liu Binghe, but actually Shen Qingche during that match. Like the fact that the mob characters weren't just mob characters to anymore. He actually cared if they were going to be killed, etc. And the fact that he really doesn't like Xua Huiling, like, at all, because like he could just about tolerate, like, he tolerated her in the novel, but it is different reading something to seeing and actually experiencing it. And also, like, he just wasn't particularly fond, but he did like Liu Mingyan. But yeah, that's got some more characters in that. I don't know. I can't remember when Xua Huiling actually comes back, if at all, because I'm pretty sure that was her only appearance in the Donghua, I think. She looked like she was scheming, but I don't think anything had... Oh, unless, yeah. Okay, there is one thing she might be related to later on, but I don't know if we actually saw her actually doing it, but it would make sense that she was in charge of it. So yeah, meet more people. But really, it's just like, I love all these little revelations happening. It's just as genuine as usual. Just like Shen Yuan's commentary on everything is so funny. His confusion about the main character satisfaction points are also very funny. Like, why is the main character enjoying this, or why is this raise their satisfaction, etc. And also the fact he just keeps cussing out the system, saying like how unfair it is that, you know, he'd lose 1,000 points but only gain 500 when he does succeed, even though it's a hard thing to deal with. But yeah, so now Liu Qingge has helped him, but you know, he's now fainted or gone unconscious from his poison, and Liu Binghe is crying, even though Shen Qingche can't even imagine that he's crying over him. There we go. I love the fact like look like pearls. Like, he can't help but describe how beautiful he is. It's very funny. Otherwise, I look forward to chapter 3, or chapter 3. Oh, I've already forgotten. I'm so bad. Yeah, chapter 3. I look forward to chapter 3. I hope you'll join me for that. Otherwise, that's it. I'll speak to you guys in the comments, or I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.